Okay, as you can see here in the exercise, we have different kind of questions. Can you recognize any of them? What kind of questions do we have here? Do you recognize any of them? No? Do you recognize any of the
Auxiliary
questions?
do,
Again, please.
auxiliar do, something like that.
Okay, maybe yes. One of the questions starts with the auxiliary do. Okay. Any other
Yes and
ideas?
no questions and information questions.
Information questions and
And yes and no questions.
yes and no questions. Okay. Which is yes and no question?
When starts with do and you answer yes or not.
Okay. I want you
Some
to,
specific questions.
okay, specific questions. Okay, very good. I want you to look at these examples. Some of them are correct and some of them not. So we are going to check them after the explanation. Okay, I want you to pay attention. We are going to talk about question patterns. Okay, so
Thank you.
let's see here, question patterns. Today we are going to check different kind of questions. Okay, that we have in English, and we are going to learn how to use them. Okay, but first, let's see if you can tell me what is the subject of a sentence and what is the object of a sentence. For example, in this sentence, we have Lucy works in a bank. In this sentence, which is the subject?
Lucy.
Lucy, right? Very good. Lucy is the subject. The subject is the person or thing that performs the action in a sentence. Okay, as you can see, Lucy is the one who does the action in this sentence. She works, right? And what about the object? Which is the object in this sentence?
The bank.
The, yes, the bank. Why? What is the object? How can you define this? The object of the sentence. What is the object of the sentence? The subject is the person or the thing who does the action, right? And what about the object? What is the object of a sentence?
It's a complement.
Okay, yes. Any other ideas?
For the capital letter,
Again, please.
for the capital letter,
My question is, what is an object? What is the object of the sentence? What? What is this? What is the definition of object? Object of a sentence.
It's something who received the action.
Yes, very good. It's something, it's a person or thing that receives the action in a sentence. Okay, so here we have Lucy is the subject, the person or who does the action in this sentence, and the bank is the object of the sentence because it's the thing who receives or that receives the action in the sentence. Okay, porque ella trabaja en el banco, ¿cierto? Entonces el banco está recibiendo todo ese trabajo que ella hace. Okay, so this is the difference between the subject of the sentence and the object of the sentence. It's very important for you to have this clear because we are going to learn questions related to these two. Okay, subject and object. Okay, so remember, the subject is the person or the thing who performs the action. The person or things that performs the action in the sentence, who does the action in the sentence. And the object is the person or thing that receives the action. Okay, Peña?
Teacher, why bank is with capital letter?
Why bank? Because
Yes.
it is the name of the bank in this situation. Okay, For example, it says your bank. But normally you can write it with lowercase if you are talking about any bank, okay? Okay, let's see. Let's see the two kind of questions we are going to learn with the subject and the object, okay? We have different kind of questions. We are going to learn how to use the object question and the subject question, okay? Pay attention to this. So here we have the same character. We have in the last example, we have Lucy in the bank, right? And here we have the question that it says, where does Lucy work? And the answer is, she works in a bank. As you can see in this question, we want to know the object of the sentence. Okay, we want to know the object of the sentence. So that's why the name of this kind of questions is object questions, because we want to know the object of the sentence. We are asking for the object, okay? And here we have the subject question. We have Lucy again. It says, who works in a bank? Lucy works in a bank. In these subject questions, we don't know the person who does the action. So we want to know who is the subject of this sentence, who works in a bank. Okay, so this is the difference between the object questions and subject questions. When we have object questions, we are asking for the object, the person or thing who or that receives the action. Okay, and in the subject questions, we are asking for the person or thing who or that performs the action. Okay, so this is the difference between these two. We normally use these kind of questions, object questions. These are very common. These are the ones that we most use in English. Okay, but when we want to know who did this or who is doing this, we can use the subject questions. Okay, let's check the definition. In the object questions, we want to know about the receiver of the action, and in subject questions, we want to ask about the subject. We don't know who performed the action or who is performing the action. So this is the difference between these two. Here we have exactly the same example. I want you to notice something. There is a difference. There is another difference between these. And this difference is in the structure of the question. Okay? So let's check these two examples. It says, what do you want to drink? We want to drink some juice. As you can see, this is an object question because we are asking for the object of the sentence. And this one, who wants some fruit juice? We want some fruit juice. This is a subject question because we are asking for the subject of the sentence. Okay. Now I want you to analyze a little bit the structure of this object question. Okay. What do we have first in this object question? What is this?
WH question.
Yes, it's a WH question word, right? What about this one? What is this?
Auxiliary.
Auxiliary verb. Very good. It's auxiliary verb. This one?
Subject.
The subject of the question, right? What about this word here?
The verb.
The verb, the main verb, right? Very good. And what about the subject question? What do we have here? What is this?
WH question word.
WH question word. Very good. This one?
Verbs.
Verb.
The verb, the main verb, right? And then we have the rest of the sentence, right? So what is the difference between these two structures of questions? What is the difference?
In the first, we use what, in the second, who.
Okay, but we can change it. We can change the WH question word.
In
The
the
different.
The
it's the
auxiliary?
auxiliary.
Yes, we have an auxiliary verb, right? In the object question, we need to use an auxiliary verb. Very good.
Yes.
And in subject questions, we don't need to use auxiliary verbs. Good. Any other difference? Any other difference? The subject, right? In the object question, we need a subject after the auxiliary verb. But in the subject question, we don't need a subject because we don't know who is the subject. Okay, we want to know who is the subject.
I was looking that in the text, and in the text, both are with who.
No problem. You can change the WH question word. Pueden cambiar la WH question word. Eso no es relevante. Enseguida vamos a verlo eso, ¿ok?
Me refería que, por ejemplo, en ambos lleva un sujeto.
Okay. Where is this? In which page?
En la página 13.
Okay, let's
En
check.
la tablita.
Let's check. Which one? Okay, this is not the subject. Then we are going to check this. This is not the subject. Remember that the subject of the question needs to go before the main verb.
Okay.
Si hubiese un sujeto acá, aquí estaría antes del verbo. Okay, este es el objeto. Okay, es la persona que recibe el presente, el regalo, ¿cierto? Es la persona que recibe. Estamos preguntando aquí quién le dio el regalo, quién realizó esta acción. ¿Ok? Ahorita vamos a verlo eso, ¿ok? Thank you, Alejandro. Okay, so we said that in object questions, we need an auxiliary verb and we need a subject. Very good, Alejandro. Remember that the subject of the question always goes before the main verb. In this situation, want is the main verb. So it goes before. Sometimes we have objects in the questions, but the object goes after the main verb. So be careful with that, okay? What else is different between these two structures? You said the auxiliary verb and the subject. What else? What else can you notice?
In object questions, the verb is in base form, and in subject, not.
Very good. Yes, in the object questions, we need to write the verb in the base form. Okay, if we have the present auxiliary verb or the past auxiliary verb, generally when we have an auxiliary verb, generally we need to write the main verb in the base form. But in subject questions, we need to conjugate the verb. If the question is in the past, we need to write the verb in the past. Okay, for example, si fuera en el pasado acá sería who wanted some fruit juice, right? Okay, but if the question is in the present, we normally write the verb like for the third person with an S or with an ES. Okay, so be careful with that. So these are the different two structures that we have here. Here we have a question word. Any question word you want to write. Okay, then we have auxiliary verb, subject of the question and the main verb. Okay, and in the subject questions, we normally use who or what, but you can change also here the question word. And then here we have the verb in the simple present or in the simple past. Of course, you can use different tenses, but in this lesson, we are going to use simple present or simple past, okay? And the object of the question. Okay, so these are the two different questions that we
Teacher,
have until here. Yes?
excuse me, I have a question. In this object question, what do you want to drink? Want is the main verb, right?
Yes.
And in this case, to drink, what would it be?
Okay,
To drink.
it's a complement of the question. It's not the main verb. Want to drink.
Okay.
It's a complement of the main verb. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Anybody else?
Thanks.
Okay, very good. So be careful with the verb here and with the structure. Okay, don't get confused. Here we have some other questions. Okay, let's check. Number 1, please. Can you read the questions, Everett?
Isn't she your girlfriend over there?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it be nice to paint that wall green?
Mm-hmm.
Haven't you watched this movie before?
Okay, haven't you watched this movie before? Very good. What kind of questions do we have here? What do you think? What kind of questions are these? Any ideas?
I think that are questions that when we think we know something about one person.
Okay, but what kind of questions are they?
Are yes and no question.
Yes or no question? Okay, could be. Any other idea?
Negative question.
Negative questions, right? As you can see, here we have negative questions. All of them are negative questions. Okay, very good. So when we have negative questions, what do you think is the structure that we use? What is the structure in these questions that we have here? What do we have first? The auxiliary?
Not.
All of them are auxiliary verbs?
Modal verb.
Okay, we can have modal verbs too. Very good. And we can have also the verb to be, right? This is, in this situation, this is not an auxiliary verb. This is the verb to be. In this situation, we have a modal verb. And in this situation, we have an auxiliary verb, right? Very good. Any other ideas about the structure of these questions? After these words, what do we have in the questions?
Excuse me, are they objective questions?
Are they?
Objective questions.
Okay. Do we have an auxiliary verb? Yes. Do we have a subject? Yes. So these are object questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
What else? What else do we have
not.
here? Not.
Not.
Okay. Something that I want you to notice is the form we use here. For example, we don't use is not. We don't use would not. And we don't use have not. We use the contracted form of the negative auxiliary verbs, verb to be, or modal verb. Okay, so always the contracted form for negative questions. Okay, And after that, we have, what is this? She, it, and you.
Subject.
The
Subject.
subject. Very good. Yes, very good. So,
Complement.
and the complement. Very good. So we can have verb to be, we can have auxiliary verb or modal verbs, but always in the contracted negative form. Okay, don't forget that. And after that, we have the subject and then the complement of the question, of course. Very good. So here we have some functions. Okay, please, can you read the first one, Valeria Paz? This one, please.
Okay, teacher. To give your opinions or to suggest something in a more polite way.
Very good. Thank you. Let's go to the next one, please. Rafael, can you read number 2?
To express surprise about something.
Okay, thank you. And the last one, please, Madeleine.
To ask for confirmation of something you believe to be true.
Very good. Okay, now we are going to read the questions and I want you to match them with the functions here. Question number 1, please, Eden. Can you read question number 1?
Isn't she your girlfriend over there?
Okay, so what is this function? To give opinion or to suggest something in a more polite way, to express surprise about something, or to ask for confirmation of something you believe to be true. What do you think is the function of this question?
To ask for a confirmation of something you believe to be true?
Yes, to ask for confirmation, right? This is to ask for confirmation. Here we have number 1, it says to give your opinion or to suggest something in a more polite way. So here we have, wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be nice to paint that wall green? So in this question, we are expressing our opinion to suggest something in a more polite way, right? So more polite than, it would be nice to paint that wall green, right? So we can say this, but if we want to say it in a more polite way, we can ask a negative question. Here we have to express surprise about something. Haven't you watched this movie before? So this movie is old. I am surprised that she hasn't watched it yet. Okay, and as you said before, to ask for confirmation of something you believe to be true, this one, right? So I believe she is your girlfriend and I want you to confirm that information. Okay, so these are the 3 different functions in which we can use negative questions. To express your opinion, to express surprise about something, or to ask for confirmation of something. Okay? I want you to think in your example. I want you to think in a negative question to express any of these things that we have here. Suggestion or opinion, surprise, or when you want to ask for confirmation. Okay, think in your example, and then we are going to listen to them, okay? If you have an example, you can raise your hand so we can listen to you. Any ideas? Any questions? Any negative questions that you have in mind? Lucas, please.
Haven't you read this book before?
Very good. Haven't you read this book before? Very good. You're expressing surprise, right? Alejandro?
Haven't you heard about the crash last night?
Very good. Yes, you're expressing surprise. Joel?
Haven't you played this guitar before?
Haven't you played this guitar before? Very good. Any other questions with confirmation or to give your opinion or to suggest something?
Can I read my question? It's a funny one, but
yes.
Haven't you gotten vaccinated yet?
Okay. Yes. Very good. Any other ideas? Okay. Very good examples. Let's continue.
So teacher, I have a question. Excuse me.
Yes.
Why in the modal verb, in the question with the modal verb is wouldn't it be? Because it sends the verb before it.
Because why the verb is not before it?
Yes, the verb be, the verb to be.
Because the verb to be is not, in this situation, the verb to be is not the auxiliary verb. Okay, in this situation, the verb to be is the main verb of the sentence. So that's why if you have the verb to be as the main verb of the sentence, it needs to go after the subject. Okay, here it is the subject and be is the main verb, is not the auxiliary verb. Ok, siempre cuando es el auxiliar va adelante o cuando es el verbo de nuestra oración, pero cuando es el main verb, como en esta situación, tenemos como, podríamos decir, auxiliar, nuestro modal verb. Y el verbo to be es nuestro verbo principal de la oración. Por eso es que tenemos esta posición, ¿ok? Any other questions?
So,
yes?
the subject is first.
Again, please.
The subject it is first in this case.
In this case, yes, because the main verb in this situation is the verb to be, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, good. Let's move on. Then we have tag questions. I guess you know a little bit about this because I noticed that you could solve the exercises here on the book. What are tag questions? When do we use tag questions? Do you remember? When do we use tag questions? Or what are tag questions? Tell me what do you remember about tag questions?
Is it when you want to confirm your question?
Yes, very good. When you know something or you think that you know something and you want to confirm that information, okay, very good. Yes, normally we use these kind of questions. Okay, so let's see the structure we use in tag questions, okay? So it says we can use a statement with a tag question when we have different situations in which we can use tag questions. One of those situations is the one your partner mentioned. When we want to confirm something we think is true, okay? So we think we know something, but we want to check that information. Okay, that's when we can use tag questions. For example, and the other one is when we want to start a conversation or to make a comment. Okay, here we have an example. My brother is washing the dishes, isn't he? Okay, so as you can see, this is the tag question. And this is the statement, okay? Por eso dice, we can use a statement with a tag question. This is a statement before the comma, and after the comma, we have the tag question, okay? Here we have another example. The doctors have worked here for 5 years, haven't they? Okay, so this is a statement, and before the comma, and after the comma, we have the tag question. Here we have other examples. To start a conversation, it says, it's a hot day, isn't it? Okay, it's a hot day, isn't it? And then we have here, to make a comment, he's not very organized, isn't he? Is he, sorry. He is not very organized, is he? Okay. Something that I want you to notice is the intonation of these questions, okay? When we want to check information, the intonation always goes up, isn't he? Okay, the same here, haven't they? The intonation of the tag question goes up. And when we want to start a conversation or when we want to make a comment, the intonation goes down. It's a hot day, isn't it? Como se dan cuenta, no estoy diciendo isn't it, sino isn't it. La entonación de mi pregunta baja. Ok, y aquí lo mismo, he's not very organized. Is he? No es is he. Ok, entonces tengamos también en cuenta la entonación de las preguntas, ¿ok? De acuerdo a la situación, de acuerdo a la función que le estamos dando a esta pregunta, tenemos estas dos distintas entonaciones, ¿ok? Let's see here some other examples, okay? So we have two parts in the tag questions, right? We have a statement, and then after the statement, we have the tag question. So something that you have to remember about the tag questions is that always we need an auxiliary verb. So we use the auxiliary verb that we have in the statement plus the subject pronoun that we have in the statement, okay? We can't use nouns, we just use pronouns, okay? So auxiliary verb and subject pronoun. Let's check some examples here. When we have an affirmative statement, our tag question needs to be the opposite, okay? It needs to be negative, okay? Let's check here. We had already studied this topic. What do you think is my tag question here? We had already studied this topic. What could be my tag question here? Recuerden que necesitan un auxiliar y un subject pronoun.
Hadn't we?
Hadn't we? Yes, very good. Hadn't we? Very good. So remember, the statement is affirmative, but the tag question needs to be negative. Okay, and we use exactly the same pronoun, but we change the position. We first write the auxiliary, and after the auxiliary, the pronoun. Okay, let's go to the next example. Daniela will come next year. What could be the negative tag question here?
Won't she?
Won't she? Very good. Won't she? As you can see, I am using the negative form of my auxiliary here, won't, and I need to change my subject for a subject pronoun. No puedo decir won't Daniela, sino que tengo que cambiarlo por un subject pronoun. Okay, won't she? Very good. Then we have the opposite of this, that is when we have a negative statement, the tag question needs to be affirmative. Okay, let's check some examples here. You are not from here. What is my tag question here?
Aren't you?
Are you?
Are you?
Are you, right? Remember that it needs to be affirmative. You are not from here, are you? Very good. Let's see the next one. They didn't go to class yesterday.
Did they?
Did they?
Did they? Very good. So we use the affirmative form here when the statement is negative, right? Very good. Any questions until here about tag questions? Okay, let's check some examples. We are going to continue practice tag questions with these sentences, okay? Number one, please, I'm going to ask some of you. Raisa, number one, it says, he's still sleeping. What is the tag question here?
Isn't he?
Isn't he? Okay, very good. Let's go to the next one. Luis Alberto, you go to school.
Doesn't you?
Doesn't you? Why do you choose doesn't you?
Oh no, don't you?
Don't you? Okay. Why? Why don't you?
Because I need auxiliary verb and subject. And, the subject is you.
Okay, very good. And why don't and not didn't, not haven't, not other auxiliary verb? Why don't?
Because the is the present.
Yes, very good. Because the statement is in the present simple, right? If you don't have an auxiliary verb, but you have a statement, an affirmative statement in the present simple, you need to use don't according to your subject, right? For example, if this is in the past, you need to use didn't. Okay, very good. Thank you. Let's go to the next one. Please, Tamara, let's go for a walk. What do you think is the tag question here?
I'm not sure, teacher.
Okay, but you have any ideas? Or no?
No.
Okay, Franco, what about you?
I'm not sure, but it's don't you?
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Do you have any ideas about what that question could we use here?
Me, teacher.
Please.
Don't we?
Don't we? Okay, could be. Anybody else?
Maybe isn't it?
Okay, maybe. Anybody else? Okay. Remember, this statement is a suggestion, right? Let's go for a walk or an invitation. Okay, when we have these kind of statements, the question tag or the tag question is shall we? Remember that. When you have let's go or let's do this, let's eat some pizza, let's drink some, I don't know, something. The tag question needs to be shall we? Okay, so remember that when you have suggestions, shall we? Okay, this kind of suggestion or invitations, okay? Then we have this one. We won't be late. What do you think about this one, Jose Alfredo? We won't be late.
Will be. Will we, pardon.
Okay, yes, will we? Let's go to the next one, please. Ebert. Number 5, nobody called. Nobody called.
It could be nobody called, right? Or
Pero recuerde que siempre, siempre, siempre en las tag questions necesitamos un auxiliary verb y un subject pronoun. Anybody? Any ideas here? Number 5?
I think isn't they?
Isn't they? Okay.
Isn't it?
Isn't it? Anybody? Anybody else?
Didn't it?
Didn't they?
Didn't they? Why didn't they? Did they? Why did they?
No.
¿Por qué podría ser did they la opción correcta?
Because nobody is, it's a negative nobody.
Yes,
So
very
it
good.
has to be. Mhm.
Nobody is something negative. It's not affirmative. It's not an affirmative sentence. It's a negative statement, right? Nobody called. Por más que no tengamos el verbo en la forma negativa, se sobreentiende que la oración es negativa, ¿cierto? Y como está en pasado, ponemos did. Cuando no sabemos el sujeto y es algo general, utilizamos they. Did they? Okay, be careful with that. Number 6, please, Matt. They will wash the car.
Won't they? Won't they?
One day, very good. We must lock the doors, please, Madeline.
Mustn't we?
Mustn't we? Very good. Mustn't we? I'm right. Josue. I'm right.
Am I?
Am I? But remember, it needs to be the opposite. If the sentence is affirmative, that question needs to be negative. And in the contracted form. Anybody?
Isn't I?
Isn't? Isn't it? Do we use isn't for I? What do you think, guys?
Am I not right?
Am I not? It needs to be in the contracted form, remember?
aren't I?
Aren't I? Why aren't I?
Don't I?
Why don't I? Remember, we have here the verb to be, right?
Yes.
Okay, this is an exception to the rule. We don't use exactly the same auxiliary that we have here because we don't have a negative contracted form of am, right?
Yes.
No decimos I'm not, something like this, right?
Yes.
So that's why this is an exception. When you have the verb to be with I, how can you do it in the negative form? Aren't I?
Aren't.
Okay, aren't is the one that we are going to use. Okay, so pay attention to this. Here we have. So you bought a car, Joel or Joel?
Didn't you?
Okay, didn't you? And the last one, you wouldn't like to invite my dad. Anybody?
Would you?
Would you?
Would you?
Very good. Would you? Any questions about these question tags or tag questions?
What does it mean? Shall.
Shall we is like will. Es como decir will, pero en este caso no utilizamos will. Para sugerencias utilizamos shall. Any
Es
other
una
questions?
forma un poco más, es una forma más formal, digamos, ¿no? Shall we? Creo que es una forma que tienen un poco más antigua, digamos, el shall se lo usa en cosas más formales. No sé, he estado leyendo y shall es casi ya no se lo usa.
Not exactly. You are going to listen to this a lot in movies, in normal speaking. Okay, let's move on. And we have here the last kind of question that we are going to learn today, direct questions and indirect questions. Okay, for example, this is a direct question. Where is the bank? Okay, and an indirect question is, could you tell me where is the bank?
Where the bank is.
Okay, then we have the other one. Did they win? Okay, and the question is, do you know if they won? Okay, so let's check this question here that we have here. I'm sorry, yes. Aquí el is es, déjenme corregirlo, es al final. Siempre cuando tengamos este tipo de pregunta, el is va al final. Sorry, let me correct this. Very good. So we have these kind of questions, okay? Direct and indirect questions. And today we're going to focus our attention on the indirect questions. Okay, so we have yes, no questions in this kind of questions, and we have WH questions, okay? So this is the normal structure we use with yes, no questions. We have the yes, no question, if, the subject and the verb. And with WH question, we have yes, no question, the question word, the subject and the verb. Let's check here. Here we have the direct question. So the indirect question would be, can you tell me if he is Spanish? As you can see, I am following the structure here. And I am using if. Was she watching TV at 3 p.m.? And the indirect question would be, do you know if she was watching TV at 3 p.m.? Okay, so direct question and indirect question with if, when we have yes, no questions. And we have here WH questions. When is the restaurant closing? Could you tell me when the restaurant is closing? Okay, so here we have this structure. Okay, we have the question word, when, the subject, and the verb. And then we have here, how long has she been living here? Can you tell me how long she has been living here? Okay, so this is the structure we are going to use for these indirect questions. Okay, the yes, no question with if, and the WH question with the question word we have in the direct question. Okay. Any questions? Any doubts? Okay. I want you to check these exercises here. I want you to correct them because some of them are not correct.